I'm Julie Zenner along with Dennis Anderson, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
Will he or won't he? Duluth Mayor Don Ness is here to talk about a big decision he will soon make, whether to run for re-election.
Longtime state representative Tom Huntley is not running for re-election, but he does have a new job. He'll talk about that tonight.
And a major grant announced this week will allow a UMD professor to pursue groundbreaking research in Antarctica.
These stories, the business news, and more coming up next on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. Denny, I don't know about you, but I'm glad to be back after a week away.
Yeah, you took a few days off, went out of town.
I did.
Good to have you back.
But it is fun to be back.
Very
it looks
nice.
like we have a good show, so let's not waste any time. Let's get right to it.
All right, Julie, thank you so very much. He might be Duluth's most popular mayor ever, and he ran without opposition in the last election, something that has never happened before in city history. So when Mayor Don Ness recently posted his thoughts about maybe running for re-election or maybe not on his Facebook page, it did get plenty of attention. While that post indicated he's leaning against running for a third term, a final decision is yet to be made. And joining us now is the man himself, Duluth Mayor Don Ness. Mayor, welcome back. Well, your Facebook page of, about a month ago did raise a lot of questions. So, are you running for re-election?
Well, I haven't made my decision, and actually, that post was just a way to kind of communicate with my supporters, and knowing that the discussion is happening.
Sure.
Next year is election year, and there's speculation out there, and unfortunately, there was a lot of misinformation, and people kind of saying, well, we know what the mayor is going to do, and he's either going to or not going to run, and that's frustrating. And so I just wanted to kind of communicate with my friends, my families, my supporters, and just say, here's how I'm looking at this, and here are some of the factors that are going into this decision, and I'll make that decision in the fall.
What are some of those factors that you're weighing as you look ahead to your personal and your political future?
Well, I've always felt that it's important that politicians, well, at least for me, I would rather leave too early than too late. And, thinking about a third term, and I know that there are a lot of things that I'd be excited to take on in the early years. And if it were a 2-year term, I would do that in a heartbeat. But thinking about a 4-year term and kind of the thinking about what will be my level of enthusiasm for the job, I've never enjoyed the political side of this job. I love, the strategy. I love the organizational management piece of being in a strong mayor system. But I've kind of put up with the politics in order to try to do good things for their community, but it's never been a driving force for me.
So if you don't run for re-election, Mayor, what else are you interested in? What would you like to do?
Well, my degree was in business administration and economics, and I love big ideas and kind of strategic thinking, and I'd like to challenge myself in a different field. And I don't know exactly what field that would be, and that's part of the reason if I decide not to run, I want to give myself plenty of lead time, because the thing about a political job is there's a definitive end date. And if you don't have a job at that definitive end date, you're going to have a hard time supporting your family.
Would you like to stay in town?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's the non-negotiable. But beyond that, I think there are so many things that I'm interested in and would love a new challenge.
You say you want to stay in town, but of course there's always speculation that the eye is on a bigger prize. I've heard governor's office might be something that you would be a good fit for. Is that something that you would consider at some point?
I'm really not interested in kind of higher political office. I think in terms of my skill sets, my interests, my desire to be close to my family, the job of mayor is the one that I'm best suited for, and that I've really loved the challenge of it. I've loved being in this role, working for a city that means so much to me. And when you get beyond a local level, there's a whole different level of expectations in terms of fundraising, in terms of kind of pandering to different special interests, and I just don't have any interest in that type of politics.
Let's talk a few issues. A street tax will soon be added to our water and gas bill. You felt there was a need?
I did. You know, it's one of those issues that is obviously a point of great frustration and even embarrassment for our community. We haven't done a good enough job investing in our streets. And quite frankly, the fee that was implemented by the council is not adequate to invest in our streets. We need to get proactive. We need to start investing in those streets so that they stop that cycle of deterioration in which we're investing a tremendous amount of money in the upkeep, and yet, you know, they're continuing to fall apart at the same time.
Plus, the cost of going to a restaurant and to a hotel is going to get higher. Does that worry you?
Well, you know, we're very excited about our investment in West Duluth and the St. Louis River corridor. These are neighborhoods that, you know, strong, proud neighborhoods, but there's a lot of seniors living in those homes, and there's going to be a turnover. So we want to make a case for West Duluth to be a great place for a new generation of home buyers. And when you consider that, you know, the tax that is implemented on a $20 meal is going to be 10 cents, you know, I think that's a worthwhile investment.
Was there a major impact to the city when that half and half tax was taken away for a while?
Well, I think it was interesting that, you know, it certainly wasn't noticed by our visitors or by the patrons. It's such a small increment, and in terms of, it's a small increment for the person going out to eat, but it can make a huge impact on the quality of life in West Duluth.
How do we grow the city's population, or does the city not want to really grow beyond where it is?
I think that, you know, over the course of the last 10, 15 years, we've made an important shift in our community. Instead of resisting development, resisting growth, we're now embracing it. And I think that this community is ready for that challenge of growth. We're seeing right now in our housing market that there's more demand than there is supply. And now we're seeing development interest not only from local developers, but from developers across the region, from the Twin Cities, from Chicago, looking at Duluth as a good place to build multifamily housing, to build single-family homes, and that will facilitate the growth of our population, growth of our tax base, which will then help us invest in our aging infrastructure.
And you're seeing businesses like AAR looking like they're going to be adding workers in the next few years, and Lake Superior College, good news with them responding to that. Where do you think that aviation sector is going now?
Well, it's, you know, the aviation is a tough business, but you know, that Cirrus made it through that last recession,
they did.
and they had growth in their market share. That bringing AAR, which is a leader in the MRO industry across the world, really. And, you know, their initial projections were 225 jobs over 3 years. It's now been 18 months. They're already over 300 jobs and looking to bring on a fourth line.
Okay, Duluth Mayor Don Ness, thanks for sharing your time.
All right, thanks,
Appreciate it.
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
While the pride of Baltimore, too, was kept at bay for more than an hour, the crowd which had gathered to welcome her grew more and more excited.
I saw the ship coming in from my balcony I was watching earlier, and it was going back and forth, and it was really beautiful. So here I am to see it come in.
It's a beautiful ship, lots of sails, and it just looks like a clipper ship from the 1800s. And it's kind of exciting to think what we might, you know, if we had been sailors, that's the kind of ship we might have gone on.
And then the aerial lift bridge, free from earlier electrical problems, rose to the occasion, and the 170-foot tall ship with her sails billowing floated into the Twin Ports.
It has a long point on the front, on the bow, I guess it is.
It's kind of like a picture of the Mayflower.
Yeah, that's right. It'll look like a picture of the Mayflower.
Of course, the 10-sailed schooner did not impress everyone who saw her.
Just came off the golf course and sounded like a better thing to do than mow the backyard, I guess, huh?
Colleen Burns, KDLH News.
After 22 years in the state legislature, Representative Tom Huntley of Duluth will be stepping down at the end of the year. But the Professor Emeritus of UMD's med school will continue to pursue his passion for health policy. He recently was named Executive Director of the Minnesota Rural Health Association. Representative Tom Huntley joins us now to talk about his years in the legislature and his new job. Representative, 22 years, that's a long time. Why the decision to step down now?
Well, my wife and I talked about this, and you know, your spouse often knows more about you than you know about yourself. And she felt, and I became convinced that it was time for me to move on and do something else.
The Minnesota Healthcare Association has you as its new executive director. What is that group? What will you be doing?
It's the Minnesota Rural Health Association, and their primary mission is advocacy for rural health issues. And the current executive director was stepping down, and so the position was open, and a member of the board asked me to apply, and I applied. And what I'm really interested in, by the way, is primary care and rural medicine. And both of those are very important to this organization, so I could devote what I'm doing just to those two things.
In terms of medicine, Tom, what's lacking in rural Minnesota in terms of medicine?
The ability to recruit people that want to provide the services, be they nurses, nurse practitioners, physicians assistants, and particularly physicians. And the federal system is tilted against primary care, which is pediatrics, family medicine, part of OBGYN, and general internal medicine. And there's a shortage of those people nationally. The Minnesota Medical Association thinks that we'll be short about 1,000 primary care docs in 10 years.
In Minnesota alone?
In Minnesota alone. And the education system for docs is tilted against primary care. All the rewards are for specialists. And you know, specialists do a good job, I'm not knocking them, but we definitely need more primary care docs.
You mentioned that one of the primary roles of the organization is advocacy, and to me that says that you may wind up back down in the legislature as a lobbyist. Do you think you'll be spending a lot of time at the Capitol talking to your old colleagues?
In the House, you can't be a lobbyist for the first year, so and I really don't intend to be a lobbyist. That doesn't mean I can't go down there and put on presentations and so on for individual members of the legislature. But as I said, the primary care problem is a huge problem, and most of the legislature don't have a clue about it. And to educate them about this issue is going to be very important.
So many call it Obamacare. Is Obamacare going to survive if a more conservative government gets into Washington?
I don't think they can change it. Actually, they could repeal Obamacare, and the most important parts of it would just continue on, and that's an emphasis on primary care is in that bill, and that's going to continue. We passed in 2008 what are called the Minnesota Medical Homes, which is to have primary care and nurses and nurse practitioners and physician assistants work together as a team and be really in charge of the patient rather than just sending them to a specialist and being no communication back and forth. And the money you can save in healthcare is by keeping people out of the hospital. And that's the primary care doc's job.
Let's talk about your years in the legislature. Has the state legislature changed a lot in the 22 years that you've been there, do you think? Yeah, it seems like there's so much polarization.
It was starting to change when I got there, and some of the members have been around a while before I came in there. We used to talk, and they were very disappointed in the way things were going, becoming too partisan, not being able to sit down and work out a deal. and do what's best for the state. Everything becomes very partisan, and and the speeches are all partisan.
Yeah. Is it fixable? What has to happen to fix it?
You just have to demand that things get done, and we can't have the stalemate that they have in Washington, where basically nothing gets done lately, and that is you need to appoint people to the right jobs in the legislature that want to not just pontificate on certain policy issues, but actually make some improvements for the state.
It's often said that the best legislation is bipartisan. Last session, the Democrats kind of ran the table in Minnesota. Do you think that really good legislation came out of that, or would it have been better if there had been more dialogue across the aisle?
I think there could have been more dialogue across the lines, but the things that we did in 2008 in the healthcare area have resulted in the results just came out in I think April that medical homes that I talked about, our healthcare homes, are saving the state 9% of the medical assistance dollars because we're coordinating the care of people who have chronic.
Your biggest accomplishment in 22 years?
I think it's the medical homes, healthcare homes, and that starting to emphasize keeping people healthy rather than waiting till they're really sick and then treating them well in a hospital.
All right. Well, Representative Huntley, thank you so much for coming in tonight. Good luck in your new position.
All the best.
I'm sure we'll be talking to you
very
again.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. A National Science Foundation grant of nearly $9 million was announced this week for a UMD Science project. The money will go to construct a new drilling platform for research in Antarctica. The new rapid access ice drill will have the ability to drill through miles of ice to the bedrock below. This new technology will provide exciting new information about the ice caps and the geology below. Joining us is the principal investigator on the project, Professor John Goodge of UMD's Earth and Environmental Science Department. Welcome. Thanks for being here, John.
Thank you.
You couldn't find a warmer place to do your research, huh?
It's a lot like Minnesota. It's a comfortable place to be if you're familiar with snow and cool temperatures.
This project absolutely fascinates me, John. You're going to be boring through 11,000 feet of ice looking for?
Well, we're trying to, it's a multi-purpose kind of tool so that we can both study the climate history that's contained in the ice, look at what the conditions are at the base of the ice sheets where where the ice sheet is in contact with the bedrock below, which we have never seen before directly, and also then for my main interest is to be able to get samples of the bedrock geology below
What's
that.
deposited down there was put there 1 million years ago?
Well, it turns out that the ice cap in Antarctica probably is as much as 34 million years old when it first started to form. And what we're looking for with this particular drill is to see if we can find a continuous ice record that goes back over 1 million years.
Wow.
The oldest ice cores that we hear about in the news that have been collected in either Greenland or Antarctica, the oldest are about 750,000 years of record, because the ice gets older as you go downwards. So we have about that length of time record, but we are interested to find some million-year-old ice or older because of some important climate transitions that take place at that time. But the ice cap has probably been around for as much as 34 million years.
Now we have some graphics that that you're allowing us to use, and if they could put those up on the screen, it would be nice if you could just kind of walk through what we're seeing.
Yeah, these are a pair of images here collected by other researchers that show a couple of views of Antarctica. Keep in mind that Antarctica, the part we're seeing here, is larger than the continental U.S., larger than the continent of Australia, so it's a big chunk of territory. On the right is what Antarctica would look like if you took all of the ice away, if you could see through the ice, and we know this from radar penetrating measurements to see where the rock interface is below.
That's a large landmass.
It's a large landmass, and you can see the warmer colors, the reds and oranges, are high standing areas, mountain massifs and mountain chains, and the low standing areas are in the blues and violet colors. So it shows that there's some really interesting topography there that makes it look like any other continent, and so it's something we would like to explore. But we don't see any of that geology, only around the edges or through part of the mountain range that cuts across. So that sort of image is what excites me to try and figure out what that irregular topography looks like. The other image on the right shows ice velocities, and so we use that as a guide to figure out where we can best drill. So.
And this is the platform that you're.
This is
going to be building?
is a design drawing for the 5 major containers on sleds that will be the guts of the drilling system. So around all of this will be other containers for fluids, drilling fluids and fuel, and berthing and accommodation for the drilling crews and so on. But the central tall masted structure there is the drilling rig. It uses threaded jointed pipe, much like you would imagine for an oil and gas kind of rig.
A rapid access ice drill. How long, using the word rapid, how long will this take?
Well, we're hoping that we can get through all of that ice sheet and down into bedrock in as little as 4 days, which is very fast. And then to get on site, drill down, take some cores, pull out and move on in as little as 10 days altogether. Wow. So that way we can do multiple sites to drill in one field season, which typically would be 2 or 3 months in Antarctica.
Has this kind of a rig ever been built before for this purpose? I mean, it sounds like the type of a drill that would be used for mineral exploration, but is it different when you're drilling with ice?
Right. It's actually the main guts of this system. The drill rig itself is actually borrowed directly from mineral exploration industry. So anybody that would have been working up on the Iron Range would be familiar with exactly this kind of a drilling system. We've modified it because of the bits that we're using to go through the ice, and then the system that we'll use to go down through that on a wire line to core below that. The difference in Antarctica is that nobody has ever tried to design a drill to get through the ice and through that transition into the rock below. They've always been coring continuously down through the ice itself. And
Could you find some early life forms?
It's quite possible. It's an interesting question, Dennis, because some of our colleagues that are looking to work with us on this project are interested to see if there are extremophile organisms, some sort of microorganisms that might have survived since the ice sheets first started to grow. And we there's in the news, people may have heard about some subglacial lakes in Antarctica. So we know that there are dozens or hundreds of these subglacial lake environments, and there's a lot of curiosity about whether or not there's any living organisms.
What's in that landmass beneath there?
Right, exactly. Yeah, well, we don't know. That's the target of it, right? Yeah.
Of course, ice melts. Is it difficult to get a core that you actually can do a thorough study on?
Right. Well, that's a great question. It turns out that the ice actually warms up as you go downward because it's getting closer to the Earth's surface, and there's always heat coming out of the Earth toward the surface. And the coldest temperatures are up near the atmosphere. So once we pull the ice cores out, they're actually pretty safe because it's colder at the top than it is at the bottom. And then we just have to keep them in freezer boxes to get them airlifted out to laboratories. So it's pretty standard practice to get ice cores out and keep them frozen. But we do have to do that, otherwise once they start melting, we're are lost. So,
And
yeah.
you yourself, will you be spending quite a bit of time down on this rig?
Probably not actually a lot. We're trying to design it so that it really has as few people on site as possible. So mostly drilling operators, drilling crew, and some other staff to help them. The science teams would be either away from the drilling rig in another Antarctic base or maybe even in New Zealand waiting to receive the core. So we're trying to, in order to keep the logistics as smooth as possible, to try and keep as few people on site as we can.
Please come back, John. We'd love to have you back here talking about what you found.
Well, in a couple of years, maybe we'll let you know.
We'll have you here.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your
Thanks, Professor. It's time for the week's business headlines from Business North. Wisconsin Indian Head Technical College has received an $884,000 state grant to fund new sections of high-demand programs. The money was part of a $28 million funding package that will help all 16 Wisconsin technical colleges prepare workers for high-demand fields such as welding. Governor Scott Walker signed the initiative, which is called Blueprint for Prosperity, last March. The goal is to reduce long waiting lists for enrollment in programs and courses for high-growth manufacturing industries.
In Duluth, Lake Superior College announced plans to launch an aircraft maintenance degree program next month in response to the need for qualified aviation sector workers. The new program has been certified by the Federal Aviation Administration, which regulates the commercial airline industry. It includes lab-intensive training in general airframe and power plant maintenance. Graduates will receive an associate's degree. LSC anticipates enrolling about 24 students by the time classes begin August 25th, and up to 48 students can be accommodated.
A grand reopening will be held this weekend to celebrate the redesign and reconstruction of North Tower Avenue in Superior. Celebrations with music, drink, and other specials will go until taverns close tonight. Saturday is structured as a family day with an opening ceremony at 11 a.m. and other events until 5 p.m. Those events include music, a ribbon cutting, children's games, arts and craft vendors, food carts, demonstrations, a car show too, and sidewalk sales. The area encompasses Superior's original business district on Tower Avenue from Belknap to North 3rd Street. For more business and economic news, visit businessnorth.com.
Now's the time to call. If you have a comment on our show, dial 218-788-2849 and leave a message. Or you can send your comments in an email to almanacnorth@wdse.org. And when you're online, visit the WDSE website for the latest program information, news about the station, or just to catch up on the shows that you've missed. Denny, it sounds like there's plenty to do in our region this weekend over in Superior. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, you know, we're really at midsummer. Nobody should be bored. There are things to do all over the Northland, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, wherever it is.
All right, well, get out and enjoy it. For Dennis and the crew here at Almanac North, I'm Julie Zenner. Thanks for watching and have a great weekend.